Thank you for tuning in to Ramble On, an extension on the Highland Rambler and of the Highland Media Association. Special thanks to our sponsors and listeners like you. Thank you.
Hi, welcome to the Ramble On podcast. This is the first episode of a new segment called Student Sit Down, a segment where we talk to students about anything Highland related. Hi, I'm Nick Dersh.
And I'm Eli Adams, and we're here with Javi Hernandez.
So September 16th, which was Tuesday this week, the teachers were to give a harassment seminar in each of their classes. This was the A2 class, and this went for probably around an hour in each of the classes, but it was mainly up to the teacher. And just a little bit more detail, Eli, what was that mainly about?
Usually teachers, from what I hear, started off with facts and statistics about suicide and signs that you can notice with suicidal people. And then...
So that was given to them, right? That was...
Yeah.
Like, most teachers didn't get much preparation for this because it was kind of out of the blue, but...
Yeah, it seemed like they were just handed a paper with facts that they were just supposed to read to us.
Yeah, because honestly, I had no idea what was going on until the day of. I didn't hear about it until my first period, which some of the SBOs were talking about it.
Yeah, I had no prior knowledge whatsoever until Coach Benson decided that he was going to let us know a few minutes before we started.
And so talking about that, so you and Javi are in the same period.
Yeah.
And that's what Coach Benson, and that's weight training. That's usually not like a sit down kind of work class. So how did it go in terms of like what you thought about it?
Pretty much what happened is we went and got changed like we normally do, and then when we came down to class after roll, he let us know that we were going to do a harassment seminar, and he was given papers he needs to read. And Javi, how do you feel like it went? Like, describe what happened, I guess.
It went pretty like cookie cutter, I think. It was more of like, okay, we're just gonna sit down and read what these papers say on them. So he told us the signs, each statistic and whatnot. So it seemed kind of, it was like, kind of rushed to him. So he didn't really know what to do with it. I felt like, but I don't know. Like, that could just been me.
I think most teachers didn't like if it wasn't told to them because they had like a full lesson or like full activity planned out, and they wanted to get through that so they could like get to it. And I think Eli, you said that you finished the workout even after, but it's just like so you guys you had a set plan before, but this was kind of like thrown.
Yeah.
Thrown, like, in the middle of it.
Yeah. Despite missing over half of the class period, in body conditioning, we still had a full workout that was planned for that day. So it's as if Benson was only the school only let him know that they were doing the seminar that day. Like he must have not known about it very well either.
This is like a yearly thing, but I don't think it's a set date really, like every year, but mainly so they kind of just did the same thing, but a little bit less this year. Kind of talking. So, what, at least for the papers, what did it cover, Eli?
It talked about a lot of statistics involving Utah suicide rates and when youth are most likely to be depressed or have suicidal thoughts, and like misconceptions about suicide and people who are suicidal.
Yeah, it was like the facts and the myths page. I thought that was interesting, but it was also brought up a lot of questions.
Yeah.
I don't think it was 100% helpful in any way, especially because it's different because it's like they brought up the altitude, like higher altitude. It across the world it does show, but it's just that sparked a little bit of conversation at my class at least that it was like why, and we don't know why, but it's just it happens, and I don't know. I thought at least that was something I took out of it, and it was just interesting. It wasn't really a helpful like about harassment or anything, but I know that at least they had information that wasn't just like, oh, suicide is bad, harassment, don't do that. Like it was at least not just basic information.
Yeah, and beyond just the suicide and suicide prevention aspect, they quickly moved on, at least in my class, to the harassment and bullying section, which I felt was like more had more depth to it in our class. What do you what can you describe what happened in that?
Yeah, I remember Coach Benson telling us about a specific time where a student got pantsed, and he said the student thought it was a joke as we're going over the harassment part, because that section seemed a lot longer than obviously the suicide prevention and talking about the suicide section. But it was really interesting to how what happens and what's the consequences of this of harassment, but you never really get to hear, right? So he was telling us about the story of a student who got pantsed, and them didn't thinking that it wasn't going to be anything, so it was a joke. But I guess he was taken up all the way through like the legal system, and I was like, oh,
Yeah, he almost had charges pressed on him for sexual harassment
Wow.
in
Yeah.
school.
Hmm. Well, I think it's good that schools take it seriously, and I think it's nice that he shared an actual story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in
Yeah.
physics, and it wasn't necessarily bad. It was just kind of a lack of like personal stories, and that's not a bad thing. He wasn't like because it was Mr. Dittmer. I was in physics too, but it was just he got the information across that was given to him, and that was perfect. But I agree, it's hard for teachers and just anybody to talk about suicide because it's not something you want to talk about. It's hard. It's a hard topic. But harassment it's just as bad, but it's not to the extreme of death, and it's usually those conversations can go a little bit longer. Um, but I think one of the main problems I had with this, like, it was just besides the fact that it was pretty rushed, it was the fact that they showed the same video that they've shown every year, and it's a wonderful video. Like, it's a wonderful
It's
message.
it's an amazing speech um, by a person with a truly amazing story. But once you've seen it and heard the speech for 4 years now, it loses the effect dulls like substantially.
Yeah, like I remember like at freshman orientation they played the same video, and then it being played every year after that, and I was like, oh, this again.
Yeah, and like the first time it invokes the emotion. It's like this is a like the person is obviously very into it, and I think it was like freshman because I remember
Yeah.
it on the screen in the auditorium. But not only like I don't know, I feel like they just it just showed a lot of lack of preparation for it. Like I think it was last year that they had the counselors just come on to the intercom or like to the H2S station and just give a little like rundown that the whole school saw, so it wasn't just up to the teachers. Like more of an organized thing, but they didn't do that this year, and I
Yeah.
feel like it lacked that like a unity kind of overall. But
Yeah, it really depended on if a teacher was passionate about what they were telling the kids. Like, it was clear that Benson maybe wasn't as informed on suicide, but being a coach of a like team full of like large boys, he's dealt with people. He's dealt with bullying and harassment like his whole time at Highland. So he clearly like showed more effort when he was like giving that side of the seminar.
yeah, I think that obviously teachers did it differently in each thing, and I'm sure students took different aspects when they left. But I think it is cool how the because Coach Benson he has to make sure that the kids that he's making these big strong like kids that are in the school like they're in the public eye, they're on the football team, and people know that when you're on the football team. And I think that he, at least for harassment, that's good that he's informed, because that can be a big problem. And I don't think that it's bad that teachers didn't do like every little thing and make it something big, because that's not really their strong suit. They're supposed to be someone that you can go to like to talk to about it, but it's kind of hard for them just to throw a story in out of the blue. But
I think it makes it more connected in that way. It gives us a sense of okay, like we now understand the real consequences and the effects of what harassment can do, and what, and obviously the consequences as well. But it really made me more interested in why we shouldn't do this, rather than, oh, I have to hear this again and again, same information without any real life situations that are connected or tied to what we're being taught. Makes it more valuable.
And then what do you guys think that they could have done better? We've kind of talked about it, but like what are the main points that you guys feel like they could really strengthen?
I feel like letting teachers know and students know ahead of time what is happening, so it's not sprung upon you. And I think that although leaving it up to the teachers can have a lot of benefit, because clearly some really care about what they're trying to convey to the students, I think having a sense of everybody getting the same speech and talk from counselors what really was beneficial in last year rather than this year.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. I mean, I like getting the hear the same information, or having a sense of, okay, this is more organized, and there's more time to prepare on what the content is, and having like maybe a discussion about it in class, where someone can share some personal events, or like if they're comfortable, of course, and seeing what happened, or just some sort of like a discussion base that can really help students understand these things.
It just gives it more of a human feel.
Yeah.
And I agree that it just should have been more unified, because this is something that, if I think, what was it, last year we had a few suicides, and that affects the whole school. That's, even though we don't know the person, that's something that we it hits different. It's
Yeah.
not just like, oh, that's just something that happened, like you see it on the news, it's somewhere else.
Yeah,
But
you really carry that with you
yeah,
your whole life.
it's close. It's and if it's like if it's someone you know personally, it's even harder. And I feel like they could have just given teachers a little bit more, not only just facts, but just not just stories to tell, but just like areas where they could just kind of get more personal with the students, because that's what it really relied on, was how much the teacher cared. And I feel like giving them more preparation and just more things to go off of would have just been great. Um, but I feel like it's good that schools are focusing on this, because it's a big issue.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
it's something that it can change people's high school career. Like it affects people for the rest of their lives. Um, so I think that not only should we have this at least once a year, but I feel like having it like twice a year would be good.
Yeah.
Having a
I
bit more
think,
time.
in my opinion, the talk about harassment and bullying and suicide, that should be an ongoing discussion rather than a once a year talk, as Nick was kind of saying.
I feel like just making sure that we know the counselors would just be especially beneficial. I feel like, because I have a new counselor this year. I haven't talked to her since registration. She doesn't know me or like anything about it. So I feel like if we could have counselors just be a part, especially because that's who you should be able to turn to, and I feel like that should be a safe space that you can talk about these things. Javi, do you have anything to close us off for this episode?
Um, yeah, I mean, I like your idea about having the counselors be involved, because I feel like they're two separate entities. I would love to have the school more unified. As our wasn't that isn't our motto this year?
It's unity.
Unity is victory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unite and conquer part two.
Exactly. But I feel like I feel like the counselors are a different thing, and the school is a different thing. So if we can get like them connected and have us on a personal like connection level, then I feel like that could be more beneficial, not only for anti-harassment and obviously suicide prevention. It could also just give us an easier way to talk to the counselors, I think.
So, I think that will end us here. So thank you so much, Javi, for joining us on this episode of Student Sit Down. It was very beneficial to hear your information and your opinion on this stuff. So tune in next time when this rolls around again.